Hello and welcome to the Ice Guys. This is the show that takes you into the world of the National Hockey League. Every game, every day, from a betting perspective. With pro sports handicappers, Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and various guests from the world of hockey and sports betting. And now, here's your host, Ian Cameron.
Welcome to the Ice Guys, Wednesday, May 6th. Ian Cameron with you. Solo show today. Alex B. Smith on his way back home to Chicago. He'll be back with us Saturday this weekend, but it is a big day for the show. We've got, of course, the regular daily show where we will break down two games tonight. We finally get it going with the last of the second round series matchups to get underway. Montreal-Buffalo Game 1, as well as Anaheim-Vegas Game 2. We'll preview both of those games. We'll look back at last night. But first, we want to remind you that it is a betcast night. It is a free-for-all betcast night. That's right, not just a betcast night, but this is our one and only free-for-all live betcast here in the month of May. As always, we do one free betcast a month. The rest of the betcasts during the month are reserved for our Patreon members only. But tonight, it is a free-for-all betcast. So make sure you join us 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Very much looking forward to it. Again, DM or email me to join the betcast. It sounds like Alex will not be able to join tonight. It's unfortunate, but he said it's been an exhausting day. Maybe we'll see him in the chat for a little bit during the show, but I told him, don't worry about it. We'll have a good crew. I'll steer the ship here tonight for the betcast. So, like I said, join me. We'll be here. We could have a couple guests joining us here. Jordan Sambrook, our good buddy. He might be on the radar to join us for a little bit during the betcast tonight. Fresh off a sweep of the first round for him and his Florida Everblades in the ECHL Kelly Cup playoffs. We had Jordan Sambrook on before the Stanley Cup playoffs started. He might stop in for a little bit on the betcast tonight. He's in between rounds right now. His second round series for him and Florida Everblades start Friday night against the South Carolina Stingrays. So we'll get a little update from Jordan if he joins the betcast tonight, how his team's doing in the ECHL playoffs. But looking forward to it. Again, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time tonight. DM or email me for a spot on the betcast, and we will make sure we send you the link for it before it begins. We'll look back on the only game last night in the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, and it's the Colorado Avalanche taking a 2-0 series lead with a 5-2 victory over the Minnesota Wild last night. Minnesota, I thought there were a lot of good things that they did. I thought in the third period, they were really pressing and pressuring Colorado pretty good. They carried the play, carried the flow, especially as the game went on. But at the end of the day, just couldn't capitalize enough. And John Hines rolled the dice, decided to go to Philip Gustafsson in net. This is a guy that hadn't played in weeks. This is a guy that didn't play well down the stretch of the regular season either, but decided after that really rough game one with the 9 goals allowed for Jesper Wallstedt, he decided to make that goalie change. And look, it was a risky move. I was on record yesterday saying I didn't like it. I didn't like the move. And this was before. So you can't say, Ian, you're saying this now because they lost. No, I was on record before last night's game saying I didn't like this move. I wouldn't have done it. I mean, this Jesper Wallstedt kid, down the stretch of the regular season, he was great for you, okay? In that first round series, your franchise hasn't done anything in the playoffs up until now. You had lost in the first round in every year since 2015, 11 years without a first-round series victory. Jesper Wallstedt starts every game against Dallas, and he plays pretty well in that series for the most part. He did, and I thought he got better as the series went on. He played very well. As a franchise, you finally get out of the first round with that victory over Dallas. And with one game that he's off, and it's a clunker. And he wasn't good in game one. I'm not defending Jesper Wallstedt's performance in game one. He wasn't good. But in a game with defense totally non-existent both ways in game one, both ways there was no defense being played. In just one game after that, you're going to take him out and put Philip Gustafsson in, who didn't have a strong finish to the regular season, who hadn't played in weeks, and you expect him to go in there against a red-hot, undefeated Colorado Avalanche team on the road and get the job done. I didn't like the move, and it didn't work, clearly. And, Philip Gustafsson as well, The first goal, I want my goalie to stop that. I know there's a little traffic there, but that was a soft backhander from Natchez. I'd like to see my goalie make a save there. He has no chance on the second goal. We give him that. We let him off the hook for the second goal. That was just a brilliant passing play by the Colorado Avalanche. And then the third goal, I didn't love the third goal by Nicolas Waugh, short side. That's another one. I'd like my goalie to stop that. He didn't. And those were two crushing goals early in the game. You give up that first goal. The team says, "Holy shit, you haven't started in a while, and you've already given up a goal." The Waugh goal I didn't love, and then all of a sudden you're swimming upstream and you're climbing uphill against a team on the road that's very difficult to come back against. And then on the flip side, look, Colorado was very opportunistic. Some of their goals, especially when they moved that puck on the power play. You look at the goal that put it away that made it 4-1. It was just great passing, and then McKinnon finishes it off. And let's give Scott Wedgwood credit. See, I like that Bednar, unlike Hines, Bednar said, "You know what? Wedgwood's our guy. We still haven't lost in the playoffs. He's been great. We're not making a change," even though he gave up 6 goals in that game 1. So he stuck with Wedgwood, and rightfully so. And Wedgwood was great last night. I thought Minnesota really had some grade A chances, some good looks, especially in that third period when they were trailing and they were pushing. And I thought Scott Wedgwood had to turn them back and played very well later in that game. It got a little feisty, this little questionable hit there by McKinnon on Matt Boldy there. He got shaken up. There's a little bit of a dangerous play there. Didn't love seeing that. Nevertheless, the fact remains Minnesota down 2-0. It's looking like they're in some trouble, and they're really in some trouble if they don't get Joel Eriksson Ek back. I mean, the numbers don't lie. They are now 1-8, the Minnesota Wild, in their last 9 playoff games without Joel Eriksson Ek in the lineup. That's, at this point, when you're 1-8 without a particular player, that's not a coincidence anymore. That's a fact. That's data that backs up that you miss this guy dearly, and rightfully so. For the Minnesota Wild. So, like I said, that was, tough game. I thought Minnesota did a lot of good things. I mean, they were in the game. They just didn't, Wedgwood was better than Gustafsson. Thought, Colorado was a little tidier defensively than Minnesota as well, and they were more opportunistic. So, Minnesota certainly has their work cut out for them, down 2-0. Now, they do get to go back home. We'll see what happens, but like I said, it's a situation where they're in tough. I'm not saying the series is over. You still got to go to Minnesota if you're Colorado and win there. And the old rule is you're not out of a series until you lose a home game, or you're not in trouble in a series until you lose a home game. But like I said, work's cut out for them, and they needed Eriksson Ek back. They need Brodin back too. They miss him on the back end as well. So that was last night, Colorado going up in that series. Let's turn our attention now. Oh, by the way, best bet. Thank you for reminding me there in the chat. With the best bet there, Lady Valeria, about Ryan Hartman. When we signed off yesterday, I was thinking to myself, just in my head, I was like, I really gave out a shots on goal prop as a best bet. Really? Are you a fucking idiot? Are you stupid? I honestly asked myself if I was, because I've been just ripping to shreds, betting shots on goal props for years because of the frustration, and they take shots away, and it looks like what you see with your own 2 eyes is a shot on goal clearly, and somehow it doesn't get registered as one. We've had all kinds of frustration over the years. I have with shots on goal props, to the point of I haven't bet them very often, shots on goal props. But again, like I said yesterday, when I made Ryan Hartman over 2.5 shots on goal the best bet for the show, I said we're down to less games now. There's less options available for betting, with less games on the board. Sometimes you got to get a little creative. And to me, he had 7 shots on goal in game 1, a ton of shot attempts in game 1. The fact that Eriksson Ek was still out and he was still going to be centering that top line, I just thought it all added up that over 2.5 was not asking a lot for Ryan Hartman to go over the total, and he did. So credit to me for sticking with it and deciding to use that for a best bet on the show yesterday. And yes, how about Alex? How about a dying seconds of the third period bargain bin special hit for him with Big Val? Call on me, Valeri Nichushkin. His first goal of the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken, as well. And it was into the empty net. He just lofts it from his own zone and just ends up in the outer edge of the wide open net to put that game away last night. So, like I said, that's a good point too. I mentioned this in our group chat actually, Hal, about Hartman. His daily quotient of one silly penalty a game. Yeah, and once again, he took one of those last night. But hey, I won't complain too much because, like I said, he took a bad penalty, but he got 3 shots on goal for me last night, so I was very happy about that. All right, let's turn our attention to Wednesday night. I want this to be a bit of a short show today because we got the betcast tonight. Preserve my speaking voice a little bit. So we'll start with second round Eastern Conference. This is just a general series thoughts here. Montreal and Buffalo. Series price, Buffalo Sabres -115 is probably what we're seeing right now. It's pretty close to a pick-em here as far as this series is concerned. I think this is a really good series. Just throw out the hockey for a minute. Let's revel and let's enjoy the fact that this is a nice regional rivalry renewed here in this series here in the second round. There were years in the 80s and then in the early 90s that the Buffalo Sabres and the Montreal Canadiens met in the Stanley Cup playoffs many times. Okay, and some of those series were really good series. And I think when you go back to and look at it here now in 2026, it's just great for the hockey fan, especially the old school hockey fan that remembers the days of the Montreal Canadiens and the Buffalo Sabres being in the Adams division in the 80s and the early 90s and being able to say, wow, we get these 2 great franchises again in the playoffs. Once again, the original 6, all the history, all the tradition of the Montreal Canadiens and a Buffalo Sabres team that's been in the NHL since the 70s now. A Canadian Sabres, they've been division rivals for a very long time. Like I said, going all the way back. It was called the Adams division when they were meeting in the playoffs back in the 80s and in the 90s. So I think it's just great to see these 2 franchises meeting once again in the Stanley Cup playoffs like they will be here. This should be a great series. It's a tough one to call. I have just so much immense respect for both of these teams. I promised I would make a pick, okay? Make a pick in every game in this series. Now, it doesn't mean I'm betting a series price with every pick, but I do want to at least pick a winner. And in this series, it's tough. It's tough, but I'm going to rock with Montreal. I am. I'm going to rock with Montreal. For Buffalo, this is the first year for a lot of these guys in the playoffs. And for Montreal, maybe that second year for much of this young core being in the playoffs just makes them a little step ahead. I think when you look at what we saw from the Canadiens, now the Canadiens can't have a second period like they had in Game 7 against Tampa Bay where they don't get a shot on goal. They live to tell about that here in the second round when it easily could have been a different story. But at the end of the day, I just think I like what I'm seeing from the young goalie, Jakub Dobiš. I like the fact that Montreal has had a lot of success winning in Buffalo. So even though Buffalo's got home ice advantage, the Habs have played very well here over the years as well. And I just think when you look at the first round of opposition of these 2 teams, I think Montreal got the tougher opponent. I'm not a big fan of the Boston Bruins. I thought Buffalo had to work harder against Boston than even I thought at times in that series. So I think when you look at I just think Montreal puts a little extra. That's a little bit, when you look at the first round resumes, I just say, you know what? Montreal beating that veteran Stanley Cup pedigree Tampa Bay Lightning team was still a very good core, albeit an underachieving core when you think of the way Kucherov and Point, how they struggled in that series. And they didn't have Victor Hedman, who we, by the way, found out he was dealing with mental health issues. We wish Victor Hedman all the best. But, I think at the end of the day, you look at the first round and you say, I just think Montreal beat a better opponent in their first round series than Buffalo did in theirs. There's no question. So that's part of it. Second part of it, too, is you look at the fact that Montreal escaped the first round against Tampa Bay with nothing, basically, from Cole Caulfield. And Cole Caulfield has destroyed the Buffalo Sabres in his career, and we'll get to that when we talk Game 1. Cole Caulfield has had a lot of success against the Buffalo Sabres in the past. We'll see if that continues here into this series. But it's a very, very tough series to call. I respect that. It's going to be a long series too. I'm going to pick Montreal to win this series, and I'm going to say Montreal in 7. I'm going to say the distance. I'm going to say they go the distance again. Now, at some point, this might add up, but I think this is going to be a long series, and I'm definitely going to go the route of taking the series to go 6 games, the series to go 7 games, Montreal 4-2, 4-3 series result, Buffalo 4-2, 4-3 series result. This is definitely something that I like here. I think it's 6. I think it's 6 minimum. I'd be absolutely floored if this was a 4-5 gamer between these two teams. I think they're just too competitive right now to not at least see this series go 6. So again, you can see this. I'm going to use the FanDuel odds, but again, shop around. Total games for the series, 6 or 7. It's in that plus 180, plus 190 range. But Buffalo 4-2, Buffalo 4-3. That's plus 500 and plus 370 at FanDuel, respectively. Montreal 4-2, Montreal 4-3, plus 410 and plus 460, respectively. Again, you sprinkle on all 4 of those, and you're going to make money, if this series goes at least 6 games. So that is definitely what I'm looking at. As far as series-long props going into Buffalo and Montreal here, I mean, as far as leading goal scorer for the series, I mean, Caufield's the favorite. And Caufield, despite having a very quiet series against Tampa Bay, sometimes, a different opponent gets you going. And as I've said before, Cole Caufield's done a lot of damage in the past. Now, I'm not interested in taking him as the favorite to be the leading goal scorer in the series. I just don't like doing that. I like to go down the board, look for a little more value. But I understand the thought process for anyone wanting to bet Cole Caufield here as far as the most goals in the series. I could see it. I could see this being the series where he finally gets it going. And we saw it in the Tampa series. It's not like he didn't get his chances. He had looks. He had opportunities, hitting the post, missing the net. That's another thing he did in the Tampa. I lost count how many times Cole Caufield, in a glorious scoring position, missed the net. It had to have happened at least a half dozen times in that series against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And that's just not something you're accustomed to seeing from Cole Caufield. So it's just, adjust the scope on his rifle a little bit. And certainly, maybe better results will come. And again, he has done significant damage against the Sabres historically. So we'll see if that carries over to this series. One thing I want to point out here as far as coming into this series, as far as head-to-heads, like I said, Caufield's been dangerous against Buffalo. Josh Doan's been dangerous against Montreal. He's had a decent amount of success. 40% of head-to-head matchups where Josh Doan has scored against the Montreal Canadiens. So keep that in mind. In fact, as far as head-to-head goal scoring percentage, head-to-head goal scoring percentage of games, Josh Doan leads the Buffalo Sabres. You got him scoring 40% of the time against Montreal. And then after that, you got Tuck Thompson at 36%. You have Rasmus Dahlin at 29%. And then you go on down the list, and and you've got Krebs at 14%. You've got Bo Byram 11%, Zucker 10%. So you go down the list, and like I said, even ahead of Tage Thompson, for example, and Tuck, who are 2 of your more counted upon scorers for Buffalo. Josh Doan's right up there. Someone that's had a lot of success against the Montreal Canadiens. So, and we like Josh Doan. So how can I not at plus 1,800? Put a little something on Josh Doan for the leading goal scorer for this series. This is the series where I don't feel as great about some of these props for leading goal scorer. I'm definitely going to look toward Slavkovsky at plus 480. Again, Jonathan's pointing out what I'm mentioning here with Caufield, that he has done significant damage against Buffalo. If you want to bet on Caufield to lead the series in goals, I could see it happening. I just don't like betting the favorite in a market like this, like at plus 165. I just prefer to look for a little bit better value and bigger bang for the buck. That's a good one too. Zucker has had success against the Montreal Canadiens. He's 13-1. That's actually one that I don't mind. I might dabble with just a little bit. 18-1 with Josh Doan. So that's interesting. Josh Anderson had a great series against the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round. He's 30-1 if you really want to get bold as far as some of these looks for leading goal scorer. But the main ones I'm going to look at here are probably Slavkovsky for the Habs, Zucker, Doan, those are the ones that I'm liking the most here in this series as far as finding the back of the net. I don't even hate Krebs for Buffalo. Tessier at 30-1. Like, Tessier had a pretty nice series against Tampa Bay as well. So there's definitely some longer shots at the bigger odds that I think, if you sprinkle a little bit on some of them, it's not the worst idea in the world. As far as leading points, Alex Tuch, I get the case for Alex Tuch, and that's a good price with Alex Tuch, Jonathan. You can get plus 650 for Alex Tuch as far as leading point score. I think Dahlin is live at 700 as far as leading point score is concerned. Hudson is another one that I think could factor in a lot from the blue line. I mean, Suzuki and Caulfield at the top of the board for the point scorer market. Certainly they could, but I don't like the number enough, the price enough. Hudson, Tuch, Dahlin, Slavkovsky. That group is when I start to get a little interested as far as leading point score. Doan at 35-1, I like him to maybe make an impact offensively, scoring goals, and we did see him chip in the assist market a little bit against Boston in the first round. So, like I said, Doan to me, to look at, and there it is, 5 points or 3 points in 5 games versus Montreal for Doan, including 2 goals. So, like I said, Doan, for a real longer shot at 35-1 is not bad. Bowen Byram was on a point-scoring brigade early in the series against Boston, kind of cooled off after that. But I'm seeing Bo Byram out there at 60-1, as far as leading point scorer in the series. Like I said, that's, going down the board. It's a little bit more of a longer shot. But like I said, I don't think it's totally outlandish. And then as far as the exact, the number of goals, you can bet that obviously at FanDuel, number of goals in the series. I definitely like Josh Doan plus 125, 2 goals. That's my favorite right there. 2 goals in the series or more, over 1.5 goals. Josh Doan for the series plus 125. Like that one quite a bit for the Buffalo Sabres. No question about that. Slavkovsky over 2.5 goals is like plus 115. I don't mind that. We've talked about how Zucker's done some damage. You only need minus 110 for 2 goals, for over 1.5 goals out of Zucker here against the Montreal Canadiens here, no doubt. So there we go. And Jonathan's right in singing the same songbook as me with Dahlin and Hudson in the most points market for the series. Like I said, I think definitely, don't open plus 135, so it has moved slightly. Well, good reason. I mean, I don't think we're asking, especially if this is a 6 or 7 game series too, which I expect it will be. I think this is I think we go to the deeper waters here in this series. I don't think it's asking too much for Josh Doan to have over 1.5 goals here in this series as well. So that's definitely one that stands out. We talked about how Zucker's done some damage here against the Buffalo Sabres, or against the Montreal Canadiens, I should say, in the past. So keep an eye on that. He might cool off, and he did a little bit at the end of the Tampa Bay series, but he's a playoff performer. I think I'm going to have to get involved here a little bit at the over 1.5 goals here for Josh Anderson for the Montreal Canadiens. Now, he did cool off. He did slow down a bit late in that series against the Lightning as things got a little bit tighter checking in that series. But don't forget the explosion he made. Most of his production was early in that series. Remember, he got off to that red-hot start. He scored in the first, I believe, 2 games of that Lightning series in the first round. And like I said, I think at plus 195, the price at FanDuel right now for Josh Anderson over 1.5 goals, I think it's worth some kind of bet, at that kind of price, that kind of number. And again, he's just one of these players, and we've seen it in the playoffs now multiple seasons, not just this year. We've seen it before from Josh Anderson in the playoffs. Leaf fans are still, thinking about the fact of how good Josh Anderson played in that the bubble year when Montreal upset Toronto in the first round. So, like I said, I think the 2 goals here for Josh Anderson definitely worth a shot. So those are some of the props here. I could go on. There's a few others I like, but again, check the Patreon page. We'll have the plays and the bets for tonight's games, but I'll also have all my series bets for Montreal Buffalo posted on the Patreon page a little bit later today. All right, let's get into game 1 specifically. We've got Buffalo minus 130 home favorites, 5.5 the total here in game 1 tonight. Obviously, look, Montreal, it's a quick turnaround for them, but I think it's not as bad as it could have been. They could have put this game Tuesday night coming off the 7-game grueling series against Tampa Bay, but they got that extra day between Sunday, Game 7 down in Tampa Bay, and Game 1 here tonight in Buffalo against the Sabres. So I think that does have to help Montreal just a little bit. And look, the trend that we have talked about here for that I was Jonathan pointed it out. It's and I've noticed this too. There was, I think, a Boston. It was not last year. I think it was 2 years ago. But there was a series where Boston. It was Boston against Toronto. Boston against Toronto. Pasternak won the series in Game 7 in overtime to beat the Toronto Maple Leafs. This was just a couple of years ago. 7-game series, Boston. Although that was at home, and then they went on. So that's not quite applicable to the angle Jonathan mentioned, but it's still a team that played Game 7, won Game 7, had to turn around, go on the road for Game 1 just a couple days later. And I remember, I think Boston beat Florida in that first game. The next series, if I'm not mistaken. But the angle is the teams that win Game 7 on the road in the previous series and then go on the road for Game 1 of their next series, which is the case for Montreal, Game 7 on the road, a victory, and then Game 1 on the road in their next series. Those teams are on a 6-0 run going back to many years ago. 6-0 is the streak. For teams that won Game 7 on the road in the previous series, start Game 1 on the road in the next series. And in those Game 1s in the next series, they're 6-0. That's the run. So that says bet Montreal tonight that they're not going to have an emotional letdown or an emotional hangover or a physical hangover. And I'll say this about Buffalo. They didn't play as good at home against the Boston Bruins in the first round as they did it on the road. They played their best hockey against the Bruins in the first round on the road. They did not play as good at home at KeyBank. They got a little tighter. As excited as they were to play for the home fans, they didn't play as crisp, as sharp, as dominant a brand of hockey against Boston in their home games as they did at TD Garden. My general thinking coming into this series was, I think I want to back road teams in this series. I don't think Montreal is going to be in awe of playing in Buffalo. And I don't think Buffalo is going to be in awe of playing in Montreal. And let's not forget how good Buffalo has been on the road this year. And they went 3-0 against Boston on the road in the first round. They won every road game. Montreal's a very capable road team. Look what they did against Tampa Bay. They won 3 games in that series against the Tampa Bay Lightning. So these are road teams. These are teams we can trust to win games on the road. And I think you could argue Montreal and Buffalo have a stronger split on the road compared to at home. And this includes the regular season, but especially here in the playoffs. Montreal played their best down in Tampa as opposed to at Bell Center. Buffalo played their best in the first round at TD Garden in Boston, compared to at home. So my thinking is there's going to be value with the road teams in this series, game to game. Starting here in Game 1, that 6-0 trend can't be overlooked. Montreal's played well in Buffalo. There'll be a ton of Habs fans. I'm sure Buffalo will try to do as good a job as possible to shield the tickets from Montreal Canadiens fans here for this series. But like I said, I think Montreal here, I'll take a shot with them plus 110 here in this first game to take it in Game 1. And probably will take Montreal in Game 2 if they lose Game 1 tonight. That's probably what I'll end up doing. If they win Game 1 tonight, I'll put the money in my pocket, save it, because I think this could be a zigzag back and forth, very close, very competitive series. So if Montreal wins Game 1 tonight, we take the money and run, Steve Miller Band style. If Montreal loses Game 1 tonight, we probably bet in Game 2 once again, the Montreal Canadiens. That's probably the way it's going to go. But what I really like in this game is I like the over trifecta. I think this is, now, look, I'm not going to call for 9-6 like Minnesota, Colorado in Game 1, but I am going to call for these two teams to have another similar to Minnesota, Colorado. Again, maybe not to the extent of 9-6, 15 goals, but I do expect a bit of a culture shock defensively for both of these teams as they face each other here in Game 1, and I'll explain why. Buffalo, they beat Boston. Well done. Montreal's a better offensive team than Boston. I don't think we're splitting the atom figuring that one out. Montreal's faster. Montreal's got a better power play. Montreal moves the puck better, transition offense, and is much more lethal than the Boston Bruins. And I think that is going to be a challenge and just an adjustment right out of the gate for Lindy Ruff and the Buffalo Sabres to deal with this Montreal team in comparison to what we saw from the Boston Bruins in the first round. But then you can flip it to the other side of this matchup and say that, for the Montreal Canadiens, you beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I think there's a bigger gap between Boston and Montreal offensively. There's probably a smaller gap between Tampa Bay and Buffalo offensively. But I still think Buffalo is a more dangerous offensive team. Kucherov did nothing in the first round. Point, you couldn't find him with a telescope. And then, once they started to contain Brandon Hagel, no one was really scaring you for Tampa Bay, for Montreal. And, Gonçalves actually was one of their best forwards. And then you start to look at what Buffalo can throw at you. It's not Tage Thompson. Tuck and Zucker are playoff performers that can score goals, that step up in big games. They've got this tremendous third line. Tampa barely got anything from their bottom six, really. And Buffalo's got a third line with Zach Benson and Josh Doan and Josh Norris. That's an absolute thorn in your side. That's absolutely a threat to score every time they touch the ice. And that's not a third line type of prowess offensively that Tampa Bay threw at Montreal compared to what Buffalo is going to throw at Montreal. So this is going to be a bit of a immediate test defensively for the Canadiens, I think, as well, going into this game. So you put it all together. I think these two teams faced weaker offensive challenges, weaker offensive foes in their first round matchup. And I think they're going to face tougher ones here. And I think it's going to show with a bit of a higher scoring game between the Canadiens and Sabres here in game one. So I'm on over first period. Both teams to score first period, and you can still get 5.5 is available for the full game over at plenty of books. You got over 5.5 at -122 at DraftKings. It's pretty much 5.5 at most books with juice. So there's no reason you shouldn't be able to get 5.5 here with this total. Not to mention, if you go back and look at the head-to-head series, the last 10 meetings between the Canadiens and the Sabres, 9 of the last 10 have hit 6 goals, at least 6 goals. 9 of the last 10. And that's why with this total being 5.5, and my thinking that just like with the Wild and the Avs, it's going to be a game one adjustment to get used to, quicker pace, a little bit faster pace, a little bit more depth of scoring on, for these two teams. It's going to take an adjustment, I think, immediately from this. So, like I said, I like these looks quite a bit. First period over, both teams to score first period, and full game over 5.5. Again, 9 of the last 10 meetings, Habs versus Sabres, have had minimum 6 goals. So you've got that on your side here as well, as far as over 5.5 tonight. And then as far as goal props here, we just mentioned what we liked in the series. So I like Zach Benson. I like everybody on that line. Every game in these playoffs, I'm not kidding either. I have bet those 3 players every game. Goal, assist, point, you name it. Benson, Norris, and Doan. The 2 Joshes and Zach Benson. And how good is Zach Benson, a playoff player? He gets in your face. He crashes the net. He gets under the opponent's skin. That's what you win with in the Stanley Cup playoffs. That kind of effort, that kind of intensity, that kind of desire to win, that kind of desire to make a difference. That's Zach Benson. And look at the freaking assist that Doan gave Benson on that goal in the clinching game against Boston. All-out hustle, all-out work ethic. There was a call Rick Jenneret made like 30 years ago for one of the goals, and I remember it to this day. It was a goal. Spell it Hustle. All hustle is what he said. That's the Buffalo Sabres. They are all hustle as well. So like I said, I like that line. They've clearly got chemistry. Josh Norris, now it's funny because Noah Ostlund was on that line for a little bit in the Boston series. Then he gets hurt, and then he gets injured. He's still out, and Josh Norris goes back on that line, and they still played well. So that line, watch out for them. Benson, and the 2 Joshes. Benson, Benny and the Jets. This is Benny and the Joshes right here. Benny and the Josh. No, it doesn't have a good ring to it. Never should have tried to do that. Benson, Norris, and Doan. the third line here for the Buffalo Sabres. They've been great. And then you got Zucker, McLeod, Quinn. Jack Quinn's actually been the one that's been a little quiet in the playoffs. What if he gets going? We know he's got a great shot. And then Krebs, Thompson, and Tuck. But on the flip side, like I said, if you're Montreal, you go into this series where Demidov had a bunch of chances. He's due to get one, too. Demidov had just so many. Ivan Demidov had just so many good looks in the first round. Same with Caulfield. Eventually, I think it's going to hit pay dirt for them. But until I see it, like I said, Slavkovsky, Newhook got the eventual game-winning goal in Game 7 against Tampa, banking it in off Vasilevsky. I think Tessier and Anderson, Bolduc even down on the fourth line could even make an impact. I thought Bolduc had a pretty solid series. So there's definitely some good prop options. But I would say by far my favorite prop options here for Buffalo is that third line. It's Benson, it's Norris, and Doan. It's take your pick. I like all three to make an impact because you could argue that at times they've been the best line in the Stanley Cup playoffs here for the Buffalo Sabres. But should be a fun game. I can't wait for this year. I think everything about this series is great. The regional aspect of it, Buffalo, Western New York, Montreal, division rivals, great fan bases. And I don't want to hear this nonsense. Well, you can't call Buffalo a great fan base. They didn't show up for this team for many years. Well, the team was dog shit, okay? And the team was just got to the point where it was so bad that you really couldn't blame the fans for not coming out. That's how bad it got with Buffalo. When you give them even a halfway decent hockey team in this market, they're a good fan base. They're a good hockey market. I still stand by that with the Buffalo Sabres, and now they finally have that at this point in time. Krebs, yeah, I mean, that's a good point, Jonathan. I've committed, whenever I see Krebs up there, Krebs at least to get a point. You probably have to look at it because he's playing with Thompson and Tuck. He's going to get the minutes. I'm just looking right now. He's gotten a point in 4 of the last 5 games. And the point prop, even if you don't, think he's going to score, I mean, he's gotten a point in 4 of the last 5 games, 7 of the last 10 games, and it's plus money, plus 130 or so for Peyton Krebs to find the back, or not find the back of the net, but get a point for the Buffalo Sabres. So, yeah, I like the value there with Krebs. Probably have to go towards that. Jakub Dobeš over saves. I think it was Perlo in the chat that mentioned that. Just to further your case, if you like, over 26.5 saves with Jakub Dobeš. He has gone over that number in 3 straight games now. So going back to Game 5 of the first round against Tampa Bay, Jakub Dobeš has gone over 26.5 saves here in 3 straight games. So, like I said, if you want to ride the wave and you think Buffalo will be the team that's on the front foot, having more of the offensive zone time and puck here tonight, then you could keep riding that. But it is 3 straight, and for Jakub Dobeš over his saves props. 2 straight over his saves prop for Lyon, by the way, over 23.5 saves going into this one here tonight. All right, next up, it is our late game on the BetCast tonight, and it is Game 2 between the Anaheim Ducks and Vegas Golden Knights. We've got Vegas minus 160, home favorites. The total here sitting at 6.5, pretty much across the board in this game tonight. I'm not dismissing Anaheim just yet. I'm not. I think Anaheim's got a response in them. I didn't mind the way they played in Game 1 of this series. I thought for the most part, they carried the play a good chunk of the game. What they have to fix is the power play. The power play is a big reason why they moved on swiftly past Edmonton. And Edmonton's penalty kill and goaltending obviously was a big reason for that too. It wasn't very good. Vegas is going to be a step up in that department, both penalty kill and the prowess of the goaltender, in this case Carter Hart, who was obviously very good in Game 1. But let's not forget, Carter Hart had an up and down series against Utah. So, and he had some great moments, great games, good games, but he didn't have always a situation where he's put those great games together in a row. He'd have a great game and there'd be a goal or two next game that, I'd like him to make that save, and he wouldn't play nearly as well. So can we see Carter Hart deliver a performance that good once again in net tonight for the Vegas Golden Knights? Because that's about as good as he's played all playoffs in Game 1. I thought he was tremendous. Yeah, and a big reason why the Golden Knights took Game 1 against the Ducks on Monday night. Is he going to be able to play that well again tonight? That's the big question you've got here. And I think Anaheim, this is a good team. They're here for a reason. It's Joel Quenneville. It's one of the absolute best coaches of our, of this era. second in all-time wins behind Scotty Bowman. I think he's only second in playoff wins, too, behind Scotty Bowman now. You expect better from Anaheim. Let's not forget this is a Vegas team that failed to go up 2-0 in the first round against the Utah Mammoth as well. Now, there's a part of me that thinks maybe Vegas has found their game defensively, because look what they did in Game 6 against Utah. That's as good as they played defensively. It's almost like they solved the speed game of Utah. It's almost like they solved the transition game of Utah, and they shut it down completely. And to be honest with you, they did the same thing in Game 1 against Anaheim. Shut it down completely, the transition game, and all that speed that Anaheim likes to generate through the neutral zone. Like Utah in Game 6, they couldn't get much of that going. So maybe Vegas has figured it out. They've cracked the code, and maybe they're just going to, shut them down again, go up 2-0. But I still think Anaheim's got a big push in them here tonight in Game 2. I'll take a shot with Anaheim first goal, first period. Goal in the first period for Anaheim. Money line Anaheim. Little team total over 2.5, which I will wait for the betcast to bet. I'm not going to take it now at -150. That's not a good enough price for me. But if we see Anaheim team total over 2.5 fall, during the betcast to even money or plus money, I'll bet it during our betcast tonight. And I will take a shot here with the over bifecta. I'm not going to go trifecta here. I'm going to go over bifecta here with the Ducks and the Golden Knights. Because if I like Anaheim, clearly they're going to get this thing going into more of the pace that they like. And if you look at Vegas and Utah in the first round series, I don't think Vegas played two. Did they play 2 games in a row that stayed under in that series? I don't believe they did. If you look at that Vegas and Utah series, game 1 of that series went over. Game 2 of that series went under. And then every other game went over in that series. So they haven't had 2 straight unders in the playoffs yet, Vegas. The only other time they had a game stay under the total, Game 2 of the Utah series, the next game went over, in that one. So, like I said, I'm going to go with that over 6.5. I'm also small on the over 6.5, and this is definitely a game where I'm going to do a little Matty Rob special here. Over 1.5, over 5.5. Same game parlay here. And then as far as props go for this game tonight, Anaheim and Vegas, I mean, do I even have to say the words Brett Howden anymore? Do I really have to say the words Brett Howden anymore? You really didn't think I was going to go there once again tonight? And look, I like Anaheim in the game, but still, that doesn't mean we can't bet props involving the Vegas Golden Knights. And there's, he right now is turning into Logan Stankoven of the Western Conference. I mean, he's just scoring every game, for the most part of late. It's now on a 4-game goal scoring streak. You're still getting crazy prices here. I'm seeing plus 395 at Pinnacle, plus 395 at Pinnacle, plus 320 at Bet Victor. Some books have lowered it because I'm seeing the FanDuels and the DraftKings below 300, but there's still a couple books that have him above that 300 mark. Brett Howden, who's fit in tremendously, playing alongside Mitch Marner and Mark Stone on that second line. They've been phenomenal, that trio. And what a feed that was by Marner to Howden on the first goal against Anaheim the other night. Definitely liking Brett Howden again with that 4-game goal scoring streak. And I only need one more goal from him. To cash the over 1.5 goals for the series, which I have at a pretty good plus price for him. And I've even got a sprinkle on Brett Howden to be the leading goal scorer in the series. So there's no doubt, even though I'm cheering for Anaheim to win the game, I'm also cheering for Brett Howden to score again. Be foolish not to. We got over 1.5 goals in the series, and we got a little chunk of him to be the leading goal scorer in the series for the Vegas Golden Knights as well. So, Vegas, Brett Howden for sure. Mitch Marner has scored in back-to-back games. Let's give him credit, although it was an empty netter, I believe, in Game 1 against Anaheim, but he scored against Utah as well in Game 6, multiple goals, in fact. Close shave Barbashev, he scored in the last game. His goal prop is worth a look. His point prop is a must bet. He's now collected a point in 7 straight games, Ivan Barbashev. And that includes every playoff game. That is every playoff game. They played 6 against Utah, and they played, obviously, Game 1 against Anaheim. So that's 7 playoff games. And Ivan Barbashev has a point in all 7 of those playoff games. So it's almost like a must to take that, especially when you're still only laying -120 or so. Jackson Lacombe, point prop again, minus 120. He's now on a 2-game point streak, 4 of the last 5, 9 of the last 10 games with a point for Jackson Lacombe. Kooky, lend me Lacombe. He's been just a point-producing machine. John Carlson on the back end has points in back-to-back games. Don't sleep on Dorofeyev. I mean, there's definitely a lot of ways you could go here, but those are the main ones here. Just ride the wave. I mean, it's remarkable to me. It's astounding to me. Ivan Barbashev, close shave Barbashev. It's astounding to me that he's had a point in 7 straight games, and his point prop is still as dirt cheap as it is. Really, I mean, it boggles the mind. And if you're a odds maker, you kind of got to look in the mirror and think that it's just mind-bogglingly stupid that he's minus 115 in some spots to get a point, Ivan Barbashev, when he's had it in 7 straight games. But hey, I'm not going to complain. We'll take advantage of it. Let me see what else here. Shots on goal. 6 straight over 1.5 shots for Lacombe. 5 straight over 1.5 shots on goal for Carlson. 3 straight over 1.5 shots on goal for Tomas Hertl. 2 straight over 2.5 shots on goal for Mitch Marner, who's actually deciding he's going to shoot the puck a little bit more. Troy Terry's gone over 2.5 shots in back-to-back games. Brett Houghton's gone over 1.5 shots on goal in 2 straight games and in 4 of the last 5 games, which fits hand in hand with the fact that he's been scoring goals left and right. Carlson over 2.5 shots on goal in 4 of the last 5 games, 9 of the last 10 games. So Leo, and I would expect off a loss, Leo Carlton's going to be ripping some puck tonight. So anyone looking at Leo Carlson as far as, goal props, we'll see how he can, we'll see if he can go over that 2.5 shots. Not a great price, but he probably will. Granlund's gone over 1.5 shots, 4 of the last 5, 7 of the last 10. It's only 1.5, and it's only minus 130. McTavish has been a bit of a shots on goal magnet of late here as well. So those are a couple of bets to keep in mind. I think Anaheim tonight, this could be Braden McNabb went over his blocked shots in the last game. I think Anaheim will be looking to press the issue again tonight, trying to avoid being down 2-0. So maybe the block shots, you go in that direction here. Carter Hart over saves prop. If you think Anaheim's going to be on the front foot tonight, trying to avoid a 2-0 series deficit, that is definitely something to be considering. Carter Hart. And Carter Hart, by the way, has gone over saves, I believe, in 3 of the last 5, 6 of the last 10 entering this game tonight. So there you go. I don't know if I can pack much more information than that as far as goal props. Oh, yeah, our guy Seneca. Robert asking about Beckett Seneca. I don't know. I'm not feeling it tonight. I'm not. When you look at Seneca here, he's gone 4 games without a point. Now, he has had 2 shots on goal each of the last 2 games, but we're not seeing him finding the bottom of the well right now offensively. So for now, at least, I'm pumping the brakes on our guy Beckett Seneca at the moment. I want to see him actually jump up and produce here before we get back involved. Great stuff. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Appreciate it very much. Hit the like button. Typical Ian says he wants this to be a short show, and it still goes 50 minutes with only 2 games to preview. So same old nonsense for me. Never goes short, not with the way I break down the games. Anyway, thanks to everyone for tuning in. Hit the like button. Reminder, live betcast tonight, free for all, 7 p.m. Eastern. DM or email me for a spot on the betcast. I will send you the link for it just as it gets underway. Check out wizardsportspicks.com. Daily premium picks, long-term subscription passes available. Tons of great handicappers. We got NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, NBA playoffs, MLB, and more. Beyond the Lines videos. We've got daily content on the Wizard Sports Picks YouTube channel. So make sure you check all of that out. wizardsportspicks.com. We're really ramping up the YouTube content on the Wizard Sports Picks YouTube channel. And I will have a part of that, but we got so many other of the great cappers involved heavily with the content on the YouTube channel. So make sure you check it out, the YouTube channel and the website, wizardsportspicks.com. And of course, patreon.com/Ice Guys, just $10 per month. Goalie charts, totals charts, daily betting cards, sides, totals, player props posted each and every day on the Patreon page. And yes, this is a free-for-all betcast tonight, but we will have 2 Patreon exclusive live betcasts next week. So make sure you join us then for the 2 Patreon exclusive live betcasts next week, later in the second round, dates to be determined. And for that, make sure you're on board. You must be a Patreon member, $10 per month Your membership goes a long way to supporting the show and keeping it going long term. $10 per month at patreon.com/iceguys. And check out the Ice Guys store. Get your gear and your merch at iceguys.myspreadshop.com. All right, bargain bin special of the night and best bets coming up right after we hear from our great Ice Guys sponsors.
Wizard Sports Picks, featuring the finest handicappers in the universe. Sharp insights, trusted picks, and relentless results. We strive to help you become consistent winners. This is Wizard Sports Picks.
All right, bargain bin special of the night for this Wednesday night. We've got two. We got one from each game. I mean, how many times did I say the words Josh Doan in the series preview, in the game one preview? I like that line. Zach Benson's a good choice for bargain bin two. Josh Norris might even be a good choice for bargain bin special as well. But I'm going to go Josh Doan here tonight for the Buffalo Sabres. Plus 340 at BetMGM, the best price available. Josh Doan, one of a few Sabres that's had success producing against the Montreal Canadiens. Obviously, like the way he played in the first round. Josh Doan for Buffalo, plus 340 for my first bargain bin special of the night. And my second bargain bin special of the night, we got to do it. We got to keep going with the hot hand. And that is Brett Howden for the Vegas Golden Knights, plus 395. Is still the best price available currently for him to find the back of the net. Looking to make it 5 games in a row with a goal here in the Stanley Cup playoffs. He is feeling it right now. We cashed a bargain bin special with him in game 1 on Monday night, and we'll see if we can do it again tonight. Brett Howden, Vegas, plus 395, along with Josh Doan for Buffalo, plus 340 for my 2 bargain bin specials for this Wednesday night. Alex has not sent along his card yet. I don't know if he'll even have plays today because it's a travel day for Alex. So he's really, it's been hectic. He's caught up with that. So again, if he has anything, he sends me any bets for the games tonight, I'll post them on the Patreon page later on for our members. But for my best bet, we're going to Montreal Buffalo over 5.5, minus 122, the best price available. This is a similar strategy we used with Minnesota, Colorado. Again, do I expect this to be 9-6 tonight? Of course not. But all we're asking for is 6 goals between the Habs and the Sabres. 9 of the last 10 meetings have gone to at least 6 goals between these two teams. We've got Montreal facing a tougher offensive foe, in my mind, with Buffalo compared to Tampa Bay. And we have Buffalo facing a tougher offensive foe in Montreal compared to Boston. And I think it's going to show here in the first game. It's going to be an adjustment that, this team's a little more dangerous offensively. We kind of saw that from Minnesota, Colorado. Minnesota faced a wounded Dallas team, and Colorado faced LA. And they were facing each other, a little bit more dangerous offensive teams, respectively. And the result was a goal fest in game 1. Again, I'm not saying 15 goals tonight. All we need is 6, and I expect we get there. Montreal, Buffalo, over 5.5, minus 122 for my best bet here for this Wednesday night. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Betcast tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern. Looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to these games too. I mean, I am. I'm looking forward to this whole Montreal Buffalo series. I think it's got a chance to be a great series, and of course, it's a very important game 2 tonight between Anaheim and Vegas. Very intrigued to see if Vegas can continue to put the clamps on Anaheim, especially that power play. And I'm just as intrigued to see if Anaheim can make some adjustments, make some corrections, bounce back tonight, get it going offensively, and tie the series up before the scene shifts back to Honda Center in Anaheim for Game 3. So very much looking forward to these 2 games tonight on the Betcast, 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you later tonight. A reminder, the Ice Guys is live 7 days a week, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday, Sunday, noon Eastern. If you can't watch the show live, download the Ice Guys podcast in audio form on all major podcast platforms, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and more. Download the Ice Guys podcast when you can't watch the show live. I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Wednesday night. Enjoy the games and good luck. We'll see you in just 4 hours' time, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern, for the Ice Guys free-for-all live betcast. And again, we're back with you tomorrow on Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern, for another edition of the Ice Guys.